The Gulf South Conference is the premier football conference of Division II. It's the home of 11 football national championships and 5 Harlan Hill Trophy winners. Now, bringing you in-depth coverage and pinpoint analysis every week with the GSC Football Weekly Podcast, here are your hosts, Matt Zaleski and Mike Ezekiel.
All right, folks, good afternoon. For the last time this season, we're doing our Gulf South Conference Weekly Podcast, and this is the final one because now the season's over, and we did have a GSC team. UNA represent the conference in the national championship game, but they came up short to a very good Northwest Missouri State team, 29-3. But Matt Zaleski here. We are coming to you from the Fox Sports Show studio, and my main man, Mike Ezekiel, to my left. Will Corey, our producer, hanging out in the back. Mike, good afternoon, buddy.
Good afternoon, Matt. I am ready to buy you this steak dinner. You deserve it, man. What a year it's been. And hey, regardless whether UNA would have won or Northwest would have won, I probably would have offered anyway, man. Just because it's been such a fun year, not only covering North Alabama all the way to the national championship, but covering all these Gulf South Conference teams throughout the season. It's been a blast. It kind of, stinks that it has to be the last one, but man, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it has been, and we'll take a look next year and see where we're all at. I'm probably pretty entrenched here, but you never know, Mike. You're going to be finishing up your days at UNA, so you may be moving on to another opportunity. You may have an opportunity here, and Will, he does our podcast as a producer, and he records it for us. But he does different. He does a lot for UNA and does a lot of independent work as well, filming football games. So no telling where he's going to end up. So maybe we can come back next year if the stars align for us and have a chance to do this again. No decision will be made until obviously next summer, but if we do, it'll be great. I'll be looking forward to it. If we don't, certainly we've had a lot of fun this year covering the Gulf South Conference.
And you're right about that, and I'll tell you the number one reason, if we do it again, the number one reason why we will decide to do it is because we had so many people outreach to us and tell us that they enjoyed the podcast this year, and that's rewarding for us. I mean, it's fun for me and you to talk about football and talk about the Gulf South Conference and, cover something that a lot of people don't like to take the time to cover as much. And, it's been fun for us. And we just love the GSC. We love Division II. But to hear other people enjoy Division II and other people enjoy the Gulf South Conference and enjoy listening to what we have to say, that means a lot to us. And, we want to continue to do that if it's the stars align.
Mike, I think you're 100% correct, and it really hit me like it's never hit me before. I know a few people have said some things to me, but I mean, it really hit me this weekend when I was on a long bus ride.
Yes, sir.
Long bus ride to Kansas City, and I got to meet so many wonderful families. I got to meet Damon Cox's mom and dad. I got to meet James Rivers' mom and dad. I got to meet Jalen and Gerard Reedus. Now, Jalen finished his time there last year. Gerard's a redshirt freshman. Got to meet their mom and dad, and so many great people. I got to meet a couple former players that played on the runner-up UNA national champion runner-up team. I guess you can't be national champions to be runners-up. The national runner-up back when they played the last game in McAllen, Texas, before they brought it here. A couple guys on that team that lost to North Dakota State back when they used to compete in Division II. And so, I just met so many great people. And a lot of those people told me, man, you're Matt. I listened to you and Mike's podcast. And, you could tell they were listening because they were like, yeah, you were all over West Georgia at the beginning of this thing. Because I was riding West Georgia hard, and just because I thought they were the best team. And I still believe firmly that they're the most talented team that was in the conference. But obviously they said, yeah, I could tell by the end you were really starting to believe in UNA. I said, it took me a while.
Yeah,
but I got there. But yeah, you're right, Mike. It is fun to talk about it. We love it. That's why we've all three pursued careers in sports and different varieties. You do a lot of sports information work. I do a lot of broadcast work. Will does a lot of camera work. And I know you cross over to broadcast as well. But we all love it, and that's why we've chosen these routes for our careers, and then we're fortunate to do it. But one thing I've learned, and just to kind of follow up with you, is that the lives you touch, doing, obviously I cover a lot of high school athletics here in the Shoals, and the moms and dads that come up to me and say things. I've even had moms with tears in their eyes saying, I can't believe my son was being talked about on the radio. Like, you don't understand how proud it made me feel driving to work that I had to pull my car over and wipe tears. And when you hear that, it makes you feel great as a person that you're able to serve the community in a way like that. And I didn't realize how many people we would touch doing this. I thought it'd be great. Got a lot of respect for Matt Wilson and Michael Stagno and many of the people over there at the Gulf South Conference. And I just wanted to do something else to try to be try to be a positive influence with the conference. But then when you find that you're touching a lot of families that are out there watching, it's just, and they really enjoy it, and it gives them something to look forward to because you're talking about their kids or their kids' teams and things like that. So I think it's been wonderful, and like I said, it really hit me this weekend how many people have watched and enjoyed the podcast.
And Matt, I got to ask you, as a morning show host that covers a lot of national coverage and also covers a lot of things locally, I mean, what's more rewarding for you? I mean, national coverage is great, and a lot of people follow that, but when you cover somebody local, what I've come to find on that is it's more personal sometimes, and people really enjoy that and they appreciate that, and like you said, I mean, the story you just told is the epitome of my point here. I think covering things that not a lot of people talk about, I think people enjoy that more, and I think they appreciate it, and it's fun for us. I mean, this is more of a hobby for me than anything.
Sure.
I mean, we're not making any money in this, and that's not what we're in it for.
No, I just do it to it's just something else for me to do.
It's fun.
Right. And the thing about my show is that outside of the summertime, when you just don't have local sports because there's not high school, there's not college sports going on, where I talk more national. During the year, I mean, I may open with a hot trending national topic, but then hour and a half of my 2-hour show is local sports. So, that's national's fun because I kind of maybe can give some hotter takes on it, where I'm not going to give too hardcore hot takes on a high school kid. His left hand's just garbage. I mean, I'm not going to do that.
No.
But so I'm not going to say maybe sugarcoating's not the right word, but you're a little more moderate in your assessments, but you're still honest. I'm still honest, and I'll still criticize if I think it's necessary, and be critical of teams I think need to get better. But no, I mean, doing the local thing, I feel a part of a community. You don't feel that talking national sports. I mean, and if you do like a national radio show, and if I moved up that far one day, then that'd be great. I'm not saying I necessarily turn that opportunity down, but at that point, you're not really a part of anything. You may have a huge listening audience and people really like you, and you can make a lot of money. But when you're a part of a community, it's special when you go to places, and it's not recognition from an ego standpoint. It's recognition from hey, this guy cares about our school.
Togetherness.
Absolutely.
And you feel a part of it. And another point in that, not just locally, but also just this platform, the Gulf South Conference, the Division II. I feel like Division II connects a lot of people in ways. There's a lot of people that are diehard D2 fans. And you wouldn't think it until you get out and meet them, and then they come up and introduce themselves to you and say, we follow Division II, we follow the Gulf South Conference, we've been watching your show, or my son plays for UNA, or my son plays for West Georgia, or coaches at West Georgia, or whatever the case may be. And it's so great to hear things like that.
Yeah, it really is. And Mike, while I'm aware there's a lot of benefits academically and athletically for the University of North Alabama, who's exiting the GSC conference after next year, moving up to Division I, making the transition. I think it's fair to say that me and you, while we've started to buy into it and we love our university at UNA and we're going to be behind them, I think me and you're two of many people in this community that are having a little bit of a hard time with it, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for the GSC. There's a lot of fun rivalries within the GSC we have with West Alabama, Delta, Valdosta. West Georgia's become really big lately. That it's going to be challenging to walk away. It's going to be tough. I probably won't be fully bought into Division I until probably about 5 years from now. Because that first year when we're not playing anybody in football, and in 18, and then we're in the Big South in 19, but we can't go to the playoffs if we're even good enough to qualify. And then you get in the A-Sun, and I'm going to watch our basketball teams probably get their nuts cracked for the first couple of seasons. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Speaking of sugarcoating, it's going to be tough for me, and then I'm going to miss some of these rivalries. In time, I'm sure I'll buy in and see a lot of the positives. But I'll forever be a GSC fan. I'm certain that long after UNA is gone, I'll go on their websites and see who's doing what. And as long as they keep the conference tournament, the basketball conference tournament in Birmingham at Pete Hanna Center, which is a great facility down there on the campus of Samford University. Great place for that tournament too, by the way. I think they hit a home run with that. I mean, that's something that I would probably still go down. I get a press pass now to go cover it. Then I'd probably just go down there and pay my money and watch from the crowd, because I probably wouldn't have somebody to truly cover there. But yeah, I'll be a big GSC fan for a long time and a big Division II fan long after UNA's gone.
And I think that was what the point I was getting ready to make, and I figured that's where you were going with it. It's going to be tough to, it's going to be a challenge to kind of move away from Division II and move into Division I as a university if you're a UNA fan or a UNA employee or whatever the case may be. But man, I'm always going to have a special place for the Gulf South Conference. That's. Just following it for so long and just kind of getting to know these teams so well, and and I like all of them, and I want to follow them and just see how they do. And Division II, same thing. I'm always going to follow Division II. I'm always going to follow the GSC, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how it develops.
Last thing I want to say here, we're actually going to get to the game that happened Saturday. But
after all this nostalgia,
yeah, lots of the warm and fuzzy stuff.
That's right.
I remember the last 2 years, 2014 and 2016. I said I really wanted to go to the Delta UNA game in Delta. I've never seen a game at Delta State. I wanted to go. I tried this year, and it just didn't work out for me because I have to work every Saturday doing a live show for my company. But what I'm so disappointed about now is that next year Delta will play at UNA, and then UNA will be gone. So my chance to go see UNA play at Delta, it's not feasible anymore. They'll never play that game at Delta again.
Man, and that's rough. And I hate to hear that for you. I know that was on your bucket list, but Delta's a great environment. And there's so many great environments in the Gulf South Conference. I love going to games in Valdosta. I love their tailgating. I love going to West Georgia Stadium.
Yeah, that's great. I tell you, when I was watching, I can't even think of the name of the show, but that guy that goes around and tries all the food. I don't think it's the Man versus Food. It was a different one. But they were showing them going up and down the Delta in Mississippi, Cleveland and Clarksdale and Grenada, different places over there. And they were showing, man, they were eating like fried pig skins. They were eating all kind of crazy stuff with coleslaw. And I was like, man, that's some deep South. That made us feel like we're living in England, man. And hearing the shows compared to that, I was like, dude, I don't know what they're frying over there, man. But you're still like, but I'd like to try it.
and yeah, I'll tell you what, the trips to Delta, those were my favorites as far as food. Will can attest to that. We would go to catfish places, barbecue joints. I know you like that one.
Yeah, Mike, you couldn't find a joint when you were over there, buddy. I didn't know you were looking for one. Just couldn't find one.
I eventually did, though.
I bet you did.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun, man. Delta's one place that I really enjoy. The food is so great there, but like I was saying, Valdosta, West Georgia, even going to Rome, Georgia, there's some things I like to go there and see, some Civil War sites and stuff we went and saw. And then I don't want to leave anybody out. I would feel bad.
The good news for you, Mike, is if you are able to stay on with UNA, I know that you got some possible opportunities at some other universities to go be a graduate assistant. But if you do stay on with UNA in some capacity next year, you'll get to make that trip to Pensacola, West Florida, and get to see that game right off Pensacola Bay because UNA's going to play at West Florida. And I got a feeling that place may rise to the top of your list.
Yeah, it very well could. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love going to West Florida. I think their campus is beautiful. I'll be making a trip there with Will to do basketball in, I guess, New Year's Day. I guess this one I'll be there. So not a bad place to be on New Year's. And, I'm trying to think of all the other teams. I don't want to leave anybody out, but, man, it's been a fun year of covering the Gulf South Conference. Even going to Mississippi to see the Choctaws, I like their campus. And I don't really think there's a bad one that I can think of off the top of my head. It's been such a fun year.
No doubt about it. All right, here's the deal. 29-3 Northwest Missouri State wins. They're national champions for the fourth time in 8 years, the third time in 4 years, and back-to-back. I think it's fair to say they are a dynasty. They're a very, very good physical football team.
Right.
What stands out to me and what I hate the most is that we played in a game where we could not showcase our talent. For all the people that say, UNA was from the South and they weren't used to this weather and that's what gave Northwest Missouri State the edge, I don't think there's any truth to that because nobody's used to playing that. Nobody.
Not even Northwest.
You don't get used to play. Maine's not used to playing in that. So you don't get used to that. I think the key is that what their style was. Yeah, they like to throw it around. They threw a lot of quick hits, screen passes, some shovel passes. But they like to run the football. They got a wildcat guy that can come in and Schmidt to make plays. But they're big and physical up front. They want to almost play. They like to spread you out to some degree, but they can play in a phone booth, man, because they're 5 offensive linemen. And then their 4 defensive linemen, they're going to beat mostly everybody they play. And they were going to beat us more times than not in any conditions. In 80-degree weather and sunshine and Florence in September, I think that they were going to win the battle up front. I really believe that. But what I noticed early in that game is that they didn't cover us that well on the outside. I thought we had a speed advantage. Tucker could make plays outside the pocket, and I thought we looked really good. And defensively, I thought we hit them pretty good and made it very difficult. At halftime, while the conditions were not great, they were not out of control like they became in the second half. And we had outgained them 181 yards to 129. And we had more first downs, and we were trailing 7-3 because we threw an interception at the 5-yard line. Tucker forced one he shouldn't have forced, but you got to give Northwest credit. They jumped the route and made a nice play on the football. But that second half, we couldn't play. We finished the game with 202 yards of offense. We had 181 at half. We had 21 yards of offense. I thought the matchups with Julius Jones and Dre Hall and Jacob Thomas, I really thought that we could win those. I thought we were faster than they were. Now, their D-line pushed us from the get-go, and they were going to push us. They're good. I knew going into the game. That's why I picked Northwest Missouri State to win the game, because I believe in the trenches. But after watching the game, I honestly believe that game was probably 50-50 in better conditions. Maybe a slight edge to Northwest, because you can wear people down when you're that good up front, and they really were that good up front. But I hate the game unfolded the way it did. They end up getting 2 touchdowns in the final 5 minutes to extend the lead to 29-3. You look up, and it looks like, well, Northwest just got another guy. The history book's going to say, well, they just demolished somebody else in their, 3 out of 4 championships. Every game they'd won by a huge margin. And I don't believe that the reality is they were that much better. They may have been better. And I'll even check the box and say, okay, they were better. But they wasn't that much better. And I think that's what's disappointing to me. We had 3 student buses that were unable to make the trip. And I thought we did our best as the crowd to be loud. I had a press pass that could have stayed inside the whole time. And I sat in that crowd cheering for UNA. And I wouldn't have changed that because I wanted to be out there showing my support in that way. But we would have had more people there that made a lot more noise. And that didn't happen. And the things just didn't play out in a positive way for us. Now, they had to adjust to the conditions as well, and they did a good job with that. I am not here in any stretch trying to take anything away from Northwest Missouri State. But I just feel like we're going to look like we were just another notch on their belt loop there, and I don't feel that we were really inferior to them. And I really believe this. Not even great conditions. It could have been 40 degrees and cold and just not heavy snow in your face, and I think that we really could have won that game. Certainly had a great chance to, but unfortunately, those were the conditions. That's what we had to deal with. Didn't benefit us, and we came up on the short end of the stick.
Yeah, and Matt, I agree with your assessment. It was a tough game, and it's going to be tough to go back and look at that game and see that the score was 29-3. And that's tough. It's tough for UNA, and I guess the main takeaway I had from that game is Northwest. You can't take anything away from them. They are probably the best team in the nation. But I don't think UNA's that far. I think UNA's a very close second, and we'll never know. And that's unfortunate because I think if this game was played in a dome or in a neutral field where there's no snow or the conditions are not that bad, maybe cold weather, but not the snow.
That's what I thought. It could have been cold.
Yeah.
It could have been really cold. It could have been, I will even say it could have been the same 10 to 15 degrees it was if there just wasn't heavy snow in your face.
Same conditions at Shepherd last week. If that was the case, I think UNA would have been fine. And I'm not saying it in a way that I think, UNA would have beat Northwest, no doubt in my mind. I think it was more in a way that UNA played so well in the first half and left 11 points on the field. I think, like, if you go to the second half, it was just a completely different game. And a lot of it had to do with the weather. UNA couldn't do what they wanted to do. Northwest could. That was kind of where it came from a strategy standpoint. So it played into Northwest's favor. Northwest, you got to give a lot of credit to them. What a team they have. Just up front, they're so strong, and they play together. Randy Schmidt's one of the best players I've seen, one of the better players in Division II. I think maybe he should have been in the running for Harlan Hill.
One catch he made, one-handed catch in the snow.
Woo! What a snag. And Dre Hall had one too, like a one-handed snag in the second quarter, and then Randy Schmidt had his. But Schmidt,
Dre dropped a lot of passes.
He did, and
much more than he ever drops.
Right, and it was unusual for Dre. I think the conditions affect him a lot, and Julius and some of those other guys for UNA. But overall, it was unfortunate to see the game just get out of hand like that, and to be a 29-3 game. And I think UNA could have played them a lot closer if the conditions were different. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. Northwest is the champion. Congrats to them for what they've done and what they've accomplished. Winning 30 games in a row, that doesn't just happen by luck. So, pretty good program that Adam Dorrell has built, and good luck to him in the future as he's gone to Abilene Christian now, an FCS school, and their defensive coordinator there at Northwest will take over.
Yeah, they have been tremendous. I have a lot of respect for that program. And then their fans. I met some people that said their fans are being obnoxious and this and that. Every fan I met for Northwest,
they were completely nice to me. Absolutely.
Every single one of them. I think sometimes fans look for reasons to get motivated. They look for more reasons to get fired up. Oh, they think we don't have a chance. Oh, they think this. Well, they probably didn't think we had a chance, because when you just beat the hell out of everybody you play for as long as they have, you don't think anybody has a chance. But I don't think that was a knock on us by any stretch of the imagination. Every fan I met was incredibly nice.
Yeah, same here. And, a lot of the fans I met, they would just actually, it was funny. I was going back up to the press box at halftime at the national championship. I was the only one wearing UNA. Everybody else surrounding me was wearing Northwest, and they were all kind of looking at me and laughing like, you're the lone wolf over here and stuff. And one lady was really nice. She went out of her way, and she said, I kind of miss the games being at Florence. I like it here, but, we always enjoyed going to Florence. I know, and she asked about my trip and how long it took, and she said, well, usually the roads aren't that bad. And, a lot of their fans were really nice. I mean,
sure, I agree.
And, you have some of those fans. Everybody has those fans that are kind of obnoxious, and, that's not just a Northwest thing or just a UNA thing or just anything. It's every team has those fans. But what I've come to find is that most of your fans of any team are going to be some of your genuine, nice people that
sure.
Really care.
I agree, and I heard a lot of people from UNA on the bus ride talking about referees and this. Listen, I thought the refs may have missed maybe one or two pass interference or defensive holding calls on Northwest Missouri, but there was nothing they missed in that game that would have changed the outcome.
I agree 100%. I don't think it would have changed the outcome, and it's unfortunate to see that. We've had some really good officials this year, and I don't think you can take anything away from them, or you can't make that the reason. And another thing for me, I heard a lot of people criticizing the ESPN broadcast, saying it was biased, but I went back and watched it, and I don't think it was. I thought it was a great broadcast.
One person showed a video to me. They said, Matt, they were on the bus. People knew that I was in sports radio, and they said, tell me if you think this is wrong for him to say this. And I think they completely misunderstood. There was a video that's one of the people that was on the bus, a friend of theirs shot the video at home watching the game on TV, sent it to her, and then she showed me, and it said, and the color analyst was saying, hey, if I'm Northwest Missouri State right now, they've been so close to getting and blocking that punt. I go after the kicker. Rough him. It doesn't matter if you rough him or not, that your defense is playing so good. You're not yielding anything offensively to UNA right now. So go after the punt. Try to block it. And like I said, you can live with the 15-yard penalty and the first down they're going to get because of the way you're playing. But I'm going after that punt and trying to finish this game right now, rough him or not. And they're like, and they thought he was saying, hey, try to go hurt our player, try to go rough our kicker. He was making a very good point. When your defense is just completely stopping the opposition the way they were once the snow picked up, it's like, and you're that close to blocking the punt with regularity, sure. If you block this punt and can score, getting really good field position, you can pretty much end the game right now. And if you give up 15 yards, what's the big deal? Because they're not doing anything anyway. So I understood his point completely, and I didn't think there was anything malicious about that point. But you also at that point have to realize that fans are upset. Their team just lost. And, Mike, I do this for a living. You do this. I mean, I know you're still a student, but you're really involved. You're trying to make a career of doing this for a living. And in some ways you do, because some of your jobs you do get paid for on campus. So I guess you are doing it for a living.
Kind of.
But
not living very well.
You learn to separate a little bit of fan and bias. And I do it to such a degree that a lot of UNA fans don't even think I'm a UNA fan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I understand too that, listen, they're upset, they're hurting, they're disappointed, and anything you can kind of cling to in a moment to make you feel better. And usually when you're upset and hurting, something that kind of ticks you off a little bit is what also kind of makes you feel better. Like, yeah, I knew they were trying to hurt. There's not a real true reality to that. I didn't listen to the full broadcast now, and my dad did, and he told me this, and I think they got some of the Alabama treatment. Meaning that the announcers talk more about Northwest and North Alabama. Not in a way they were trying to demean North Alabama, but it was constantly about how good Northwest is, what they've been able to accomplish, why they're such an elite program. And then when you watch some Alabama games, you'll hear announcers do that too, whoever Alabama's playing, how good Alabama, and it's not that they're necessarily demeaning the other team, but Northwest Missouri State is essentially the Alabama of Division II athletics. So it's natural for them to get more publicity and conversation about them. But I still we'll get to this in a moment, but I still feel like that whole thing was put on as if UNA was just the participant. Hey, thanks for coming out, guys. And we'll get to that in a moment.
And as far as the broadcast, I didn't even feel that way. I thought it was very down the middle, because I went back and the whole storyline of the game was, two teams that are the two most storied programs in Division II. Northwest Missouri, 10 championship appearances and 5 championships. You obviously had to talk about that, but they also focused just as much on UNA's 3 national championships, Bobby Wallace being one of the winningest coaches in Division II history. They focused a lot on that, too. I thought that was very split down the middle. But going back to the analysis of the blocked punt, I thought it was very good. I thought, and I agreed. Tom Luganbill, I think, called that, just said, if I'm...
Luganbill was calling again?
Yes, he was. Yeah, Luganbill was. And, he's like, Northwest led the nation in blocked punts for the last 2 years. And, they're so good at doing it. They blocked 22 punts in the last 2 years. And that's 11. It's essentially 1 per game, really. So, that's incredible. So, to tell them, if you have to rough the kicker, do it. I mean, that's only giving UNA 15 yards. I don't think he was saying maliciously go out and hurt the punter. He was saying
not.
Just don't be afraid to get a penalty if you're trying to block a punt.
Absolutely.
Because you're not going to give up much yardage. So, I agreed with the assessment. But I don't think it had anything biased. But at the same time, Matt, I go back and think about it, and at times it maybe did feel a little bit like, we were there just to be there. Northwest was kind of the focus. And I guess they maybe deserve that a little bit. But at the same time, it was unfortunate to kind of see that.
When Alabama played Clemson last year, that's how I felt. When Alabama played Notre Dame a couple years ago, that's how I felt. If Alabama plays Clemson or Ohio State again this year, I think that there will be a lot, because Clemson was so close to beating them and Deshaun Watson's such a good player. I think it'll be different. And Ohio State's so traditionally strong and beat Alabama in the playoffs 2 years ago. I think it'll be much more neutral. But I think Alabama's been the beneficiary of the Tide's here. Who's going to be the practice dummy today? So and so when you're that good, you do get that type of respect, and maybe that just comes with the territory. Jacob Tucker, I thought, still played well in the first half. I think for the game, I'm going to double-check this here, but I think for the game he threw for about 150 yards.
Woo! Bless you, man.
I had to come out. I couldn't hold that one any longer. I had the stats up here, and I've lost them, seeing if I can't get them back.
There you go.
Tucker had 179 yards passing, no touchdowns, did have that one critical interception. Obviously a very, very low completion percentage, about 35, 36% because of the weather. You can't ask for much more than that. I mean, but you look at Tucker, and he threw the ball well. They couldn't run the ball to save their life. I mean, I think as a team they finished with 22 yards rushing. They actually gained 114, but they lost 92.
Man,
that's crazy. I didn't realize there'd be that much separation between gained and lost, but there was. But that's a lot. I mean, that's 2 reasons: the weather, but even more importantly than that, they are so darn big and strong up front, led by Cass Whittle and Colin Blevins, that they were just we were not going to block them. I knew going into the game we could not consistently block that front, but I thought the game plan was good for that. A lot of rollouts, a lot of quick hitters, because I thought we were too athletic for them on the outside.
And yeah, Matt, just going back to the actual game itself, one thing that stood out to me, I think the biggest difference, UNA was, pretty even, if not just a little bit of an advantage in the stat book in the first half. Of course, Northwest had the scoreboard advantage. UNA left 11 points out, but in the second half,
Mike,
Northwest took over.
I hate to cut you there, but I just want to say one thing. I've heard a lot of people say they left 11 points out. I don't necessarily think they left 11 points out. They left at least 3 more points out there. You can't guarantee touchdowns down there.
That's true.
I mean, they were down there at the 5. They had their chances. They kicked the field goal. The other one, that throw Tucker threw wasn't there. He tried to force it. If he throws it out the back of the end zone, Hinkie comes in and they get 3. So I think we're over-exaggerating. They left 11 points on the board. But we certainly left points on the board.
Right, yeah.
Left points off on the field.
Yeah, left points on the field. And, you're right. And that's almost me taking away from Northwest's defense on the goal line. Kind of like, that'd be saying that they – never mind. You know where I'm going with that, though. Yeah. But anyway, I think the biggest difference of why Northwest was better than UNA in this game, I look at the yards lost. I mean, Northwest continued to gain yards throughout the game, always moving forward. They only lost 1 yard. UNA lost 92. Tucker was sacked 4 or 5 times. The running game just could not get going at all.
That's a great assessment, but I think our big play capability was a lot better than their big play capability.
Yes.
But it just didn't have a chance to really come to the forefront. Because, I remember felt like the first 2 or 3 drives of the game, they got 8 yards and punted. And all plays were positive, but it wasn't enough to get a first down. Because when you look at the final stats, Mike, we punted 10 times, they punted 9. We set that punt unit out there a lot. We just physically finally wore out in the second half. So what I'm trying to get to is that you're right, and that's a good point. But they were constantly moving forward. But a lot of the game, they weren't moving very far forward.
Didn't move at all. Just
moving here. They wasn't going backwards. But when you get 8 yards in 3 plays, you are moving forward. You're just not moving very far forward. But they didn't lose yards. So I agree with you. But a lot of their positive plays early were minimal positive plays.
That's right, and I think where they took advantage was just getting good field position at times. They the turnovers when UNA fumbled the ball at one time, and they got to start the ball in the enemy territory. I think that was one of their scoring drives, and that was kind of the advantage. And we talked about that last week. We said the team that would win this game would be the team that could take advantage of turnovers, and UNA forced some turnovers, but could not take advantage of them, it didn't seem like. Especially that fumble that Dorsey Norris forced in the first quarter. UNA couldn't recover it, because neither team really secured it. It took a while to finally get the ball. Northwest took about 6 seconds to finally get on it. The ball was just going everywhere, but of course that's expected in a game like this. But, you got to think if UNA would have blocked that punt later in the game, that could have changed things a little bit. Because I think at that point it was 14-3.
Yeah, they certainly had their chances. Yeah. Mike, we had bigger play capability, and I still believe that we continue to hit pretty good sized plays if the weather doesn't kill us, because it's hard to run around and throw in the snow. Jacob Tucker go to the sideline and get his hand warm. Be in a jacket, be by heater, get his hand warm. Not only when he went back out there did it get cold quick, he'd get sacked or try to run and get thrown down. His hand's in a pile of snow, he comes right back out. You can't feel the ball again. You're trying to wipe it off, but there's only so much you can do. But this is an interesting stat. The top 5 plays for UNA as far as yards are concerned, 30-yard pass to Julius Jones, 29-yard run by Ray Beasley, 24-yard pass to Dre Hall, 20-yard pass to Ryan Harper, 15-yard run for Jacob Tucker. Top 5 top 5 positive plays for UNA. Northwest Missouri didn't have one play over 19 yards. 19, 16, 19, 14, 13. So we really had the bigger plays, but once the snow came, it kind of goes to your point. They had the ability to knock us backwards, but we had the ability to strike them with speed on the outside and down the field. But once the snow came, that wasn't happening anymore. We couldn't move them backwards, but they really didn't just continue to move forward in big ways until late in the game. A lot of their yards came in the fourth quarter. They were getting 3, 4, 5 yards on pretty good plays for them. They were getting a lot of plays where it was just 1 yard or 2 yards. And then as the game went on and our offense couldn't move it because of the snow and they started kind of wearing us down, that's when they got 10 yards, 12 yards, 14 yards. And I don't think that we're really that far worn down defensively if we move the ball a little better offensively. And that goes back to if we're not playing in a blizzard, then we move the ball offensively. And that may sound like 100 excuses, but I really believe it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. That's not me being a UNA homer because, Mike, I've been accused of not even liking UNA because when I picked Northwest Missouri, you picked Northwest Missouri? Well, yeah. I mean, so did Vegas by 20 points. And not that I think that's an accurate spread. But so I'm not being a homer for UNA, but there's things I saw with my eyes before the weather got too bad said, we're more athletic than they are. They're bigger, they're stronger, we're faster, and that would have been fun to see play out in a field where you can actually play it out. We played on the field where you couldn't showcase your talent, at least not from an athletic standpoint.
Yeah, and I think every point you made was right and accurate. I mean, they're stronger, they were bigger. That was kind of their game style. We were a little faster, but everybody's pretty much the same speed when you get on snow like that. So that was unfortunate. You noticed the 29-yard run by Ray Beasley and some of those longer plays, the 30-yard catch, they all came in the first half before it got too bad.
Yeah, we had 21 yards second half. We had 181 in the first half, 21 in the second half to finish with 202.
Yeah, and
they had 130. They had 129 in the first half, and they had 209 in the second half. And I'd like to see what their fourth quarter numbers were because they probably had 140, 150 yards in the fourth quarter.
Oh, the majority certainly came in the fourth quarter. And just I think at that point, too, their defense was just too much at that point as well. Just it made it really tough for UNA. And I go back to that defensive line. I think that was the biggest reason that Northwest had so much success. They made it really tough for the offensive line to contain them. Tucker struggled at times with that, and Even just the elements, though, you could tell Tucker's throws sometimes weren't going where he wanted them to go because he couldn't get a good grip on the ball.
And when they did go, he threw some still right on the money.
Yeah,
I
that
watched
couldn't be called.
Dre Hall drop a handful. I watched Jacob Thomas drop one. I don't remember if Jacob dropped one or not. He may have. I know Hagan Scott dropped a couple. One that he dropped, he got lit up. I got to give that safety credit. He put a hit
Kevin
on
Berg,
Hagan.
All-American. Great player.
He lit him up. Yeah, he certainly did. But then Dorsey Norris lit somebody up for them when they fumbled the ball early. So there was some hard hitting out there.
Edric Harris had a good hit in the third quarter.
But at the end of the day, Mike, do you know who won the player, who won the MVP? Was it Weidel?
If I had to guess, I would say Schmidt won it.
Should have been Weidel. It should have been Cass Weidel. He was the difference maker. Schmidt was good, but Weidel, he had 10 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. That's incredible.
Yes, I would actually go with both of those guys for sure. I mean, I look at Schmidt on the offensive side. I think that's what really made the difference for them as far as scoring. But you gotta, keeping UNA, holding them to 3 points, and Cass Weidel's performance.
Yeah.
And not just the tackles and the tackles for losses, but the pressure he brought all night. I mean, he was out there eating people's lunches.
He introduced himself to Jacob Tucker more than Jacob wanted to be introduced.
Probably so.
To him. Mike, I want to get one last thing here before we wrap up our final podcast. As much as I love Division II, I wonder if we were in the FCS Division I championship, if there's not more workers on the field. They did not do an adequate job of trying to keep the field as good as they could. Yeah, there's only so much you can do in a damn blizzard, but I didn't think they did enough to have the playing conditions where they needed to be. There was not many people. I didn't see I was talking with Coach Bobby Champagne, and I'm repeating this because he didn't say it off the record. He said it on the record on my show. He goes, I'm watching the game at home, and I'm seeing that because he used to be a graduate assistant at Washington State, and he watched the Apple Cup way back in the 90s, and he said, you had tons of people out there working on snow the whole game. He said, I saw 2 guys with snow blowers. He said there was not enough adequate help for that. I have a problem with that. It's a national championship game of Division II. So when I talk about the move to Division I, that's the one thing that I say, well, does that happen at a little higher level? And I'm not sure it does. Had another problem when we run out. And I don't know, unless somebody can explain it to me, I don't know if this was a situation where, this was something the universities chose or if it's just what the NCAA did. And I know they were in Kansas City, and that's an 80-mile drive from Northwest Missouri State, so it was obviously a stronger Northwest crowd. But we run out to some flames. They run out to flames and in a fireworks show. That was a little bit like, okay. I talked to coaches, I'm not going to call names, that said the 2 wings we stayed on, they were on the nicer wing of the hotel by a long shot. You want a coffee, you go to their wing. You had to go over there. That made you play second fiddle a little bit. They had to walk through the Northwest Missouri locker room to get taped up. Everything said, this is the Northwest Missouri State show. Thanks, UNA, for coming out. Thanks for participating. We appreciate it. And I have been a Northwest Missouri State fan from a distance for 10 years. I have a tremendous amount of respect for that program, their fan base. All their fans were nice to me, as we said earlier in the show. They have great fans. They got a great program. And this is no indictment on Northwest Missouri State. But it just felt like that game was the Northwest Missouri State show, and we were just we were a little pawn in the game. And at the end of the day, you see 29-3, and you say, well, you could have done something about it on the field. And I think maybe we could have if the conditions were differently. But that's how I felt walking away. Or not walking away. That's how I felt a day or two after having conversations with different people. And a few things that kind of came back to my mind that I didn't really pay attention to because I was freezing in the cold at the time it was happening. But I look back, and that does bother me a little bit because University of North Alabama is a wonderful university. We've been a great football program. We're tied with them for the most playoff appearances in Division II. Yes, they have more championships and more wins, but we are probably the second best program in Division II and have been, and we don't need to be treated like a second-rate team. And maybe I need to get more information because I do respect the NCAA, but that's how I feel right now, 4 days or 3 days removed from the championship game.
And again, I don't know if I have enough information to even have a point on that, but I do wonder one thing. If the game was played back in Florence like it used to be, and it was the same 2 teams, how do you think it would be then? I mean, do you think it would be?
Would it be the UNA show then?
Do you think it would be Northwest playing second fiddle?
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe so, maybe not. And let's just say it would be, because even though I love the game when it was here, I'm an advocate. The game didn't need to be here. It did not need to be in somebody's stadium that could play in that game. But this game wasn't played in Northwest Missouri State Stadium. It was played an hour and a half down the road in a neutral site stadium. And I believe this game, whether it needs to be in Kansas City or somewhere that you can never have that, because I think 1 out of 10 years that game's played in Kansas City, that's going to happen. 1 out of 20 years, that's going to happen. We just unfortunately happen to play on the 1 out of the 20 years that's going to happen. I think most days, I know 2 years ago it was cold. It was about 35 degrees. It was fine. Last year it was in the 50s. It was great weather. This year we got bad. I think for the next 10 years, if it stays there, then you'll see that the weather's not going to be that big of an issue. We happen to have bad luck. So I have no problem with the game in Kansas City. But if it does move to a warm weather site or warm weather site, then that's fine too. But I am an advocate that the game needs to be on a neutral site field, that neither team, even if they're close by and by the nature of being closer, they're going to have better fans. That's fine. But the game doesn't need to be played in somebody's stadium that essentially could play in the game.
And, I guess it kind of felt like a de facto home game for Northwest Missouri State. And I think to go back to that point, too, say the game was played at Legion Field in Birmingham or something like that.
Be a great facility for it.
It would. But it would feel almost like a home game for you in a way. But that's
but it's not because you have more fans that can make the trip.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's not this is UNA Stadium.
So your point is being in Kansas City, Kansas, and not in Maryville,
sure.
It shouldn't be a home game.
Well, we didn't play it. I mean, yeah, and that's the problem I had.
I understand that. Yeah, and I could see that.
And listen, and at first, the fireworks I kind of noticed, but I was so fired up and cold. It's funny how you can be fired up and that cold at the same time. but I didn't think much of it. But afterwards, I didn't like it as much. I didn't think there was enough people on the field doing their best to try to keep. You couldn't fix the field. It was a blizzard. But I didn't think there was enough people. With my own eyes. But then I didn't think much about it until I talked to somebody else that's watching the game and says, I've seen this firsthand somewhere else, and they didn't do enough. And then when I talked to coaches that tell me the way you're staying and things of that nature, and then a player have told me, and maybe he's upset they lost, but a player told me, I'm not going to call his name out from UNA, told me this yesterday. He said, everybody was friendly, the staff was extremely friendly to them, and they just never even said a word to us. And now I wasn't there to see that. And I know you can still be emotional and upset you lost, so maybe that's stretching the truth some. I don't know. And I'm not here to indict hotels. I'm not trying to piss anybody off, okay? But I'm telling you a little bit of how I feel, and I did get the feeling a little bit that we were along for the ride, man, and it was the Northwest show. That's how I felt, and that wasn't just because of the game outcome.
Yeah, and I won't have a lot of thought on that, but I will go back to the
diplomatic. I hear you, buddy.
Yeah,
smarter man than I am.
Like I said, I don't think I'm educated enough on everything that happened for me to have an opinion. I mean, because I really didn't feel that way until a lot of people started talking about it. But I will say this: I want to go back to the field conditions. You talked about the snowblowers, only 2 of them being on the field. I think the only explanation for that, maybe Kansas City just wasn't prepared for that. That's the only thought I could have. They were understaffed.
Sure,
I will say that. And the guys that were there were working as hard as they could.
That forecast said all week what the conditions. The forecast we read all week and we talked about before we made the trip was what the game played out to be.
So they should have been more
staffed. So if you can't get more prepared for that for a national championship game, then you don't have a lot of respect for the Division II.
Especially if you're going to put it on ESPN2.
Then you don't have a lot of respect for the Division II championship game. The understaffing. That's not going to cut the mustard as an excuse for me.
That's a good point. I mean, that's the only thing I could think it is. I mean, I don't know what else it could be. So.
Well, we got to wrap this thing up. It's been a fun year. It really has. We've had a lot of fun. We do know Adam Durrell, Northwest Missouri State, will go to Abilene Christian.
Right.
Will Bobby Wallace coach the UNA Lions next year, or is he going to retire?
Oh, we'll see, Matt. I don't know. I mean, there was a quote in a local newspaper about 3 days ago that said he's going to take some time to think about it. We'll see how it goes. If he decided to hang it up this year, what a career he had. 28 years of coaching. 3
national championships, 1 runner-up trophy. He's just won 4 straight conference championships, a ton of those. He coached at the Division I level at Temple. He turned around the West Alabama program, and they'll tell you down there in Livingston, he was the reason this program's turned around and not been, pretty much a dumpster fire or bottom of the barrel program. I said before the game, I thought this was his last game, win or lose. I still believe that, and we'll probably find out, and everybody listening will find out sooner than later. Last thoughts, next year, give me a pick to win the GSC championship already.
Ooh. I mean, UNA right away it comes to mind because of how far they went this year, and they're losing some guys, but they're also bringing some talent back.
They're losing some good guys.
But I would have to see what else everybody else is bringing.
Stephen Evans, Filbert Marshall, Levi Fell, Jacob Tucker, James Rivers, Darius Wright, Sheldon Williams. Phew. I'm going to say, believe it or not, and you guys are going to think I'm wrong. I'm going to say West Georgia wins it next year.
I knew it. He picked West Georgia.
Well, I just think Will Hall's a great coach, and I think their program's really, really special. They kind of went downhill this year. I think they'll be very, very good next year. But I never really sleep on UNA. I slept on them a little this year. Won't sleep on them again next year. But they are losing a lot of really good players,
including their quarterback. They're going to have to replace a quarterback. UNA has to replace a quarterback. Delta State
West Georgia replaced their quarterback halfway through the year,
3 weeks
so they got a guy ready to go. Right. All right, we're going to run out of time on this thing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us all season. We appreciate you listening. We've had a blast doing this. Our goal is to bring it to you again next year. And until next year, have a great, great holiday season.
Thank you for listening to the Gulf South Conference Football Weekly Podcast. Tune in next week for more GSC recaps, analysis, and predictions from your hosts, Matt Selesky and Mike Ezekiel.